This video is made possible by donations to the United States Lighthouse Society from people like you.
Everybody to our preview of the upcoming Spain tour with Henry Gonzalez. I'm going to turn it over to Henry in just a moment, but first I just want to mention, first of all, Jeff Gales, Executive Director of U.S. Lighthouse Society, is here, and I think Jeff's going to say maybe a little bit towards the end. But I also want to introduce, before Henry, Margie Rowland. And Margie has, she and her husband Jerry have planned many of the tours in recent years and led a number of them, including the Ireland tour that I did this past July, which was unbelievably great. So I'm going to turn it over to Margie, but I think we're just going to say a little bit at this point and go into a little more details about some of the upcoming tours a little bit later. But hi, Margie.
Hi, that's right. We're not going to delay any longer because we're really excited about being able to see this retro or this
preview
demonstration, this preview of the Spain tour. And so I'm just going to say that these Lighthouse tours are pretty amazing. For those of you that have been on them, I'm sure you will agree. So yeah, with that, I'm just going to say, Henry, it's your show.
We have a number of people here who've done a lot of the tours over the years. So yeah. For those of you who if you're doing the Spain tour as your first tour, you're going to love it, I'm sure. So at this point, I am going to introduce Henry. I'll just say a little bit about him. And I'll also request that all of you keep your mics muted during the presentation and not request screen sharing. Nobody should be sharing their screens except Henry for the rest of the event. And when we get to the end of Henry's presentation, we can take questions. You can ask questions in the chat, or we'll let you digitally raise your hand. We'll explain that when we get to it, and we'll pick on call on you, and you can unmute your mic to ask questions. But we'll get to that at the end of Henry's presentation. So Henry is Vice President of the U.S. Lighthouse Society. He also served 2 terms as president of the Chesapeake chapter of the Society from 1997 to 2007. Henry performs all his lighthouse duties as a volunteer. In 2015, he retired from the federal government after a 31-year career in civil service as an engineer, project manager, and senior executive. Lighthouses are in Henry's blood. He is the great-great-grandson of a lighthouse keeper in Spain. Yep. Served on the north coast of Spain from 1863 to 1904. And he has a third cousin who is currently a lighthouse keeper in Spain. Maybe he'll say a little bit more about that. And Henry is also the chairperson of the Society's Preservation Grants and Awards Committee. So I will turn it over to Henry. Go ahead, take it away, Henry.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy and Margie, and hello, Jeff, as well. And I see a lot of familiar faces here. Great to see a lot of you and some new faces as well. And looking forward to sharing this slide presentation with you, this preview with as many people as are here. I was just telling Margie a little while ago, we might have to do 4 or 5 tours to Spain this year, but we'll start with one. I also want to introduce my better half, Chris, who many of you know as well, my traveling companion and assistant tour leader. Honey, I know you're out there somewhere. You want to unmute yourself and say hi for a second? There you are. Nope, you're muted again.
Hi, here I am. Does everybody see me? Can you hear me? I look forward to meeting everybody again and meeting new faces. And as Henry said, we're very excited about this. And you're going to love it. Absolutely love it.
Great, thanks. Okay, so let's get on with the slideshow here. First thing I want to check is everybody did learn a little bit of Spanish for this preview, right? Because I'm going to actually talk about the whole thing in Spanish. So everybody okay with that? ¿Estamos listos para empezar ahora? What do you mean? People are shaking their heads no? Claire, come on, you can do this. Sí, como no. Jose, how about you? You can handle this, right?
If not, they can use Google Translate as they're speaking.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one thing I'd like to add to what Jeremy said about Q&A, which is along the way, feel free to write your questions into the chat box. If you want to save them to the end, great. But I usually forget about my questions if I wait until the end. So feel free to write them into the chat box as we go along. I may not answer them right away, but feel free to write them in there as we go along, as well as at the end. Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and share screen then. And nope, that's not the one I want. I want that one. All right, cool. So again, welcome to this preview of the Lighthouse Tour that Chris and I are going to be leading this coming September. And Chris and I have been to Spain, I've lost count, probably a dozen times in the last 25 years or so. As Jerry mentioned, my great-great-grandfather was a lighthouse keeper on the north coast of Spain, which is where we're going to be going from 1863 to 1904. And we'll actually be stopping at several of the lighthouses he was stationed at. And the third cousin that Jeremy mentioned, he just retired about a year ago, but we're going to be starting up in his area, which is the northeast part of the country. And I've got cousins through pretty much the entire country. My grandparents were all born in Spain. And so we know the area quite well. We've been to pretty much every spot that we're going to be going on the tour, and looking forward to visiting some of these places again. So just a few comments about the overall trip. We are going to start up in the northeast corner over here. If you can see my cursor with this blue marker, that's the border with France. These are the Pyrenees Mountains along the border. And we're basically going to be heading west. We're going to start in the city of San Sebastian. Okay, so for those of you that are registered in the trip, please realize that you need to make your way on your own and get yourself to San Sebastian. We're not going to be meeting in Madrid. We did it this way because we figured some people are going to be either on a little bit of vacation before or after. They might be coming from different parts. And so rather than meeting centrally in Madrid, we said, let's just meet at the starting point of the tour, which is the city of San Sebastian over here. And then we're going to be heading west over the next 12 days along this coast. 500 miles is what we'll be traversing. And we end up following the Cantabrian Sea up here on the north side. And we end up over here on the Atlantic coast. So we end up at La Coruña and Santiago de Compostela. And we'll be going through 6 different provinces. And even though, Spanish is the official language of the entire country, many of the individual regions have their own dialects. And in the case of the Basque country, which is where we'll be starting in the Northeast, their language is totally unrelated to Spanish. It's just a totally distinct language. And but again, everything will be in Spanish. But when you start hearing people talking a little bit differently, it's one of those dialects, or it could be just Basque altogether. So it's going to be 10 days of seeing lighthouses, but we're also going to have several cultural, historical sites that are important not only to Spanish history, European history, but some of them to world history. Okay. We're going to have 1 day of rest in the middle of the trip. And we are planning to see or visit 40 lighthouses. I think that number's gone up a couple since we first publicized it, but I did a count as I was putting the slide presentation together, and we're at 40 right now. And there's a little bit of a distinguishing terminology there. When I say see a lighthouse, it means that, yeah, we're going to see it. It may be an island offshore. That'll be the case only one time on this trip. But in most cases is we're going to stop there, but we're not going to go inside the light station. When I say we're going to visit, that means we are going to go inside the light station. And then when I say climb, it means we're also going to be able to climb the tower. Okay. So we're going to be able to enter and climb many of them, but not all of the ones that we're going to visit. Okay. And there's even 7 lighthouses that I'm going to tell you up front right now, we're not going to get to. They are just too far remote, would entail walks of 2 miles. It's just not going to happen. Okay. There's one that would just be too time consuming for us to add to the itinerary as well. Okay. So I'll point those out as we go along here. Let me move my chat box out of the way here. Okay, so a little bit about the geography, topography. Those of you that have been to Ireland, we're on the Ireland tour with the Society. I have not been to Ireland, but I've been to the Cantabrian coast, the north coast of Spain, several times. I've been told that it is very similar to Ireland. Okay, it's very green, lush, moist, humid, but not humid like the east coast of the U.S. kind of humidity, because it stays relatively cool. Okay, get a lot of steep cliffs. You see that picture there as an example of, and you'll see a lot of these along the presentation. A lot of steep cliffs, very jagged, and then you go in about 2 to 5 miles. And you've got a mountain range, and we'll be going into those mountain ranges a couple of times to see some of the more cultural and historic sites along the way. We have limited this tour to 21 people, and we're doing that because we need a smaller bus to get to some of these places. And in fact, you'll see as I indicate, going through these lighthouses one by one. Even now, there are, I think, 2, maybe 3 lighthouses that the tour bus company has still got to get back to me to let me know if they think the bus is going to be able to make it out there. Okay, so that's why we're going with a smaller bus, which means less people. Okay, we're going to have lots of daylight, about 12 hours every day. And up until between 8 and 8:30 is typically when sunset is going to be. The climate is going to be typical early fall kind of weather, mid 60s to mid 70s for the highs, lows low 50s to mid 60s. Okay, and again generally on the humid side, especially in the mornings, and windy. Imagine yourself on top of some of these promontories and cliffs at the very tip. You're going to be hit with a lot of wind. So you want to bring sweatshirts, you want to bring windbreakers, okay, among other things. All right. Meals. This is important. And one of the reasons we're doing this preview, even though it's not to try to quote unquote market for people to sign up for the tour, because the tour is full already. So part of the reason is to let the people that have signed up about some of the aspects of the tour, because I don't want anybody to have any surprises when we get there. I want everybody to know what we're getting ourselves into And then you can decide, hey, am I okay with all these kinds of things? All right. And one of those kinds of things that's a little bit different is the meals. Okay. Meals in Spain, lunch and dinner are quite a bit later than what we are used to in the States and with most of our international tours, right? Lunch is the big meal in Spain, not dinner. And so it's usually starts around 1 or 1:30, right? And by the way, they use the 24-hour clock there. So the first couple of slides here, you'll see me saying 1300 to 1330. Those of us that are retired military or had anything to do with the military, you know how to tell, use the 24-hour clock. But over there, there's no such thing as PM. It's just the 24-hour clock. Okay. So, and it's a lunch that, the waiters, the cooks, everybody, nobody's going to be in a hurry at lunch, right? It's about a 1.5 hour kind of thing. And it's usually, you get a soup or salad to start with, and you have a main entree. You might have an appetizer in there as well, apart from a soup or salad. You have dessert, and then usually wine and bread are thrown in as well. Okay, table wine, nothing fancy, but very good. There's no such thing as a bad wine in Spain that I've ever encountered. Plain old table wine there is wonderful. All the lunches are included in this tour, and we did that intentionally because that is the big meal of the day, and we're going to be on the road most of the time for lunch, and so we wanted to make sure we get a good lunch, because then dinner is not going to be until about 8:30 or 9. Okay, dinners are later there. Hotels, sometimes they'll start it a little bit earlier, but not by much. Okay. And some of our dinners will be at the hotels. Some of them will be in town. Some of them will be on our own. Right. So part of the message here, folks, is, if you can't wait after having breakfast to eat at 1 or 1:30, or maybe even 2 o'clock some days before we even sit down, plan on bringing your own snacks, snack bars, grab an extra apple from the breakfast buffet. Go in the different cities we'll be stopping, go to one of the local little corner groceries and get a few things, but just be aware that that's pretty much the timetable. And since we're on the North Coast, we're near the shore, you're going to see a lot of fish, some amazing seafood, some amazing fish, and vino. Vino is the word for wine. So all of that is wonderful stuff. Okay. All right. Oh, and ham. Ham in Spain is just, my mouth is watering just thinking about it. All right, that's it for the general stuff. Now I'm going to go into a day-by-day kind of review and point out a few things here and there as we go along. Okay, so day 1 is Friday to the 15th. People will be arriving that day, and we'll have a welcome dinner at the hotel. We're staying at a very nice, centrally located hotel right on the main beach strip of San Sebastian, not too far from the infamous casino there. San Sebastian is one of the cities where there are film festivals in Europe, kind of like Saint-Tropez is the other one, or forget which one in France. So we'll be right on the beach. And so our first full day is Saturday, and I've intentionally made that a relatively light day. Ha, 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 all puns intended there, right? We're going to be leaving at 9:30, so you get to sleep in a little bit. Now, when you're flying over Europe, usually what Chris and I try to do is we try to stay up as late as we can the night we get there. And it might be 7 or 8 o'clock, and then sleep as much as we can. But usually you're going to be up like at 4 or 5 in the morning, their time. But nevertheless, we're going to allow people to sleep in that first day and leave at 9:30. Okay, we're going to see 3 lighthouses on that first day. And I'm going to show you pictures of all 3 in just a second. Lunch will be in the middle of all that. And then we'll get back to the hotel in San Sebastian for our second night. All right. And we're going to get back at a very nice, decent time. We're not pushing anything on the first day. Get back at 5:15. Right. And then we have a 3-hour break. And then we're going to go out for dinner as a group to have pinchos. Pinchos are the Basque equivalent of tapas, for those of you that are familiar with tapas. So they're basically lots of little appetizers and just amazing stuff. They have this part of the city, the old city, where you have different blocks that have these pinchos joints. They're bars basically that specialize in different types of pinchos. You've got the block that has the pinchos bars with the hams. You've got another block, the one that has more towards the cheeses, and so on and so forth. And this is the area where my third cousin lives. Okay, this is the first lighthouse. This is right on the border with France. If you look right here at this map, the lighthouse is right at this tip. Okay, and that little estuary coming in is split down the middle between Spain and France. So you're looking. You could almost throw a frisbee from the lighthouse over to the French side of the border there. Okay, easy access for this one. The bus will be able to drive right up, no problem. This was my cousin's lighthouse, Faro de la Plata. La Plata means silver in Spanish. And we're trying, since he is retired now, he's working with the Port Authority to try to get all the permissions for these lights. But this one is going to require probably, it could be as much as a 500-foot one-way walk. The bus, at best, will drop us off right here, and then we'll have to walk. Not too much of an incline, turn a little corner, not too much of an incline, and then you get to this ladder, and it's straight up, to get up into it. Okay, but look at the view. Look at where it's located, right up here on the tip. Okay, it's almost a straight vertical shot down. That's how steep that cliff is. So hopefully we'll be able to get nice and close. But again, we're still working on the visit request authorization to be able to get up to it. Okay. All right. Next one is the third one of the day is Monte Igeldo. This is at the top of a hill on the west side of San Sebastian. You'll be able to see the city from there. And the bus may not be able to get down into this windy little road here. And so we may have to be satisfied with getting to a lookout very similar to where this picture was taken from, probably a little bit lower, and seeing it from there. Okay, we're not requesting access into this one because of how difficult it would be to get people in and out. So this may require a similar walk, in this case, well, a little bit longer, about 500 meters, about half a kilometer one way. And you'd always be welcome to wait in the bus, hang around the bus. It would be at a parking lot, an amusement kind of place. So we'll see what we can work out here. Part of the not challenge, part of the reality, folks, is I'm talking to these people at the port authorities and the lighthouse keepers about something that is 7 months away, 8 months away, and they're kind of like, yeah, we'll talk about it soon. We'll talk about it soon. There's plenty of time, Henry. Don't worry. Like, well, we like to get these things worked out in advance. Okay, next day, Sunday, we're going to be leaving San Sebastian, and our next city is going to be Bilbao. Okay, we're going to be moving from the Basque province of Gipuzkoa into the Basque province of Vizcaya. Okay, we've got a couple of lighthouses and we've got a couple of cultural and historic events for the day. We'll be getting to the hotel at about 7:15 or earlier if you want. The last stop of the day is going to be the famous Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. And we're going to be getting there at 5 o'clock. They close at 7 o'clock. And even though we'll plan on leaving, the bus will leave the Guggenheim when it closes at 7 o'clock. The hotel is basically either, a walking distance, or worst case, you could take a taxi or an Uber if you want it, if you're not into modern art and that kind of thing, or just want to get back to the hotel and rest. Okay, here's our first lighthouse of the day, Sumaya. Right, this one will be relatively easy to get to. It's not a far walk, but as you can see, it's up on a hill. Okay, the entrance is down at the, you can follow my cursor down here in the lower right. The entrance is down here. And so it's a relatively non-steep walk at the beginning, but then it gets a little bit steeper. All right. Okay, our next stop is a cultural historic site. Okay, you all have heard of Loyola universities here in the States. Many of them have good basketball teams, and some of you may have heard about the Jesuits and people like that. Well, St. Ignatius of Loyola was born in the Basque Country in a town, the town of Loyola. That's why it's St. Ignatius of Loyola. And there is a sanctuary there. His family home is actually part of the sanctuary. It's also a retreat house for Ignatian spirituality. So we'll be stopping there. His family home was built in the 14th century. He lived from 1491 to 1556. And the basilica was dedicated in 1738. Okay, so this is one of those historic sites that not only was very important to Spanish and European history, but had a global impact. The Jesuits were very much, and still are very much, into education. And so there are Jesuit schools all around the world, and a lot of Jesuit missionaries throughout the centuries as well. All right, from there we move back to the shore and the lighthouse of Lequeitil. This one we'll be able to get to without much of a problem. The bus, if you look at the left picture here, we'll be able to drive almost right up to it. Then it's actually a little bit of a descent. You have to come down these steps to get to the lighthouse, but they're pretty easy. Then, of course, you have to walk back up the little bit of a hill there. This has been turned into a little bit of a local museum, county museum, and so it shouldn't be any problem to get into that one. And then our last stop of the day, the art museum. Okay, and we'll be there, like I said, arriving at 5 o'clock. They close at 7 o'clock. Sunset will be like at 8:15 or so. And, if you're, the building itself, which is this top center picture, architecturally is probably just as famous as the modern art that is found inside. And in some cases, they have modern art sculptures like this spider over here and this puppy over here. It's a pretty tall puppy there. So you have the architecture that you can appreciate from the outside. It's right on the waterfront, and then the art on the inside. Again, from 5 until 7. But if you're tired and aren't into modern art, you can just go straight over to the hotel when we come back into town. Okay. Day 4, we are going to continue in the Basque Country. We have 2 nights in Bilbao. Also, the hotel very well located right on the edge of the historic part of Bilbao. 15 to 20-minute walk to the museum, but you're right right on the edge of the historic district. So great location there. So I'll be there for 2 nights. So on this day, we're going to go and see a couple more lighthouses, heading a little bit backwards, and then we've got one more historic / cultural site to see. Right, just outside of on the edge of Bilbao, there are these 2 small port lights and a breakwater light that we will be seeing. This one on the left, which is Arvilutze, it has been turned over to basically the life-saving service. Uses this building as their headquarters now. It's part of the port. This is an overview of the port. This lighthouse on the left is located right where my cursor is right now, right here. Okay. And then the breakwater light is down at the end. Okay. Now that's about a mile long. Okay. So after we see this one, we're going to get on the bus and get as close as we can to the breakwater light, which will probably be here. Okay. So at that point, it'll be like hopefully less than, maybe a quarter mile, something like that. That we'll still have to get to walk up to it. Okay. So a little bit of a distance, but obviously totally flat to get out to the light. All right. Then just a little bit further outside of town is this lighthouse of Punta Galea. It's right on the end of a pretty ritzy, high-end neighborhood development area. And this one will be, again, a view only. We're not going to visit. There's really no great place to park because we're there in this neighborhood. We could park over there and then the bus could come pick us up, but it's not a terribly exciting lighthouse. And so we'll probably just view this one and then keep moving for the rest of the day. Okay. From there, we're going back to the interior to the town of Guernica. This is famous from the Spanish Civil War, and in particular, the Nazi Germany, General Franco, who headed up the Spanish military and the what's called the Nationalist Party, not political party, but the war-fighting party, requested help from Adolf Hitler. It's 1937, before the start of World War II. And we don't know for sure if Franco requested it or if Hitler offered it because he wanted to try out a new dive bombing technique and try to perfect it. And so the two of them agreed, and German airplanes came in and dive bombed and blew the heck out of Guernica. Guernica had been and still is the traditional ancient site of Basque governments. And this picture of the tree that you see here in the center is the meeting place. And this is the assembly, the Basque assembly. This is where they have traditionally met. And there's always been one of these trees, I forget what type of tree it is, under which they meet to start the assembly and so on and so forth. And this is a famous painting by Pablo Picasso, who was Spanish. And this is his interpretation of the chaos that occurred at Guernica with that bombing in 1937. So we'll be stopping there, and then we'll head back to the coast. This is one of those lighthouses that we are pending, confirmation from the bus company that they can get there even with the smaller bus, right? So we'll have to wait and see. This is one where my great-great-grandfather was stationed at, except He was stationed at the old one. Here's the remains of the old tower. This one was built in 1852, but for some reason, when he was stationed there, which I think was 1855, he was actually at the old tower. So they say it was built in 1852 and it was operational, but for some reason they still had the old one still going, and he was a keeper in the old one. Okay. All right, so that's it for the Basque provinces of Gipuzkoa and Vizcaya. For those of you that like to keep track and are saying, oh, Henry, you missed a couple. Yep, these are the two that we missed and that we will not be going to. Gorlice is a modern one, was built in 1990. It's a 2.5-mile round trip walk, okay? So no, we're not going to go out to that one. And Getaria, this one is not too dissimilar from one that you saw earlier, where there was a little bit of a incline on a cliff that we had to climb. But in this case, you have to get to the other end of this little promontory, this little island almost. And that's over a 1-mile round trip walk, and plus the 100-meter elevation. And it's the same identical design as some of the other ones that we are seeing. So I'm taking that one off the list as well because of the distance and similarity with the design of some of the other ones. Day 5, we enter the province of Cantabria. We are going to see a beautiful lighthouse, which is the one that I have as a background right now. It's located at an ancient castle from medieval times. And then we're going to go out on a boat and see a couple of lights that, again, are too remote to be seen by bus because we'd have to walk quite a bit as well. But it's a place that we can get a boat chartered, take us out there and look at them. At the end of the day, we arrive in another major city, Santander. It is the capital of the province of Cantabria. And we'll be seeing a couple of things there and end the day at the Cabo Mayor Lighthouse, which is, I believe, apart from the Tower of Hercules, it's the oldest lighthouse we'll be seeing on this trip. And we'll have dinner at the hotel. Here's the one that is, you'll recognize the, this picture is the one that I have as a screen background right now. It is on the corner, as you can see up here in the upper left and down here in the lower left. It is on the corner of a castle that goes back to the, well, both the church and the castle. Actually, the castle is a little bit newer. 12th century for the castle, 13th century for the church right next to it. And the lighthouse itself, the tower, essentially was built in 1853. It's going to require a little bit of walking and climbing. We don't believe the bus is going to be able to get up. This is a little bridge. This is this bridge here. We think the closest point of approach is going to be for the bus to drop us off down here, and then we climb up this little bridge and then walk across. But we're getting that confirmed as well, which would be this bridge right here. Okay. And then once you get inside the castle, a little bit of climbing as well to get up to it. But just a beautiful location, beautiful shots from the harbor that we can pass by as well. Okay. Okay, these are the two we're going to be seeing from the water. Faro is the word for lighthouse in Spanish. I should have mentioned that earlier. Caballo is horse. Faro de caballo y faro de pescador. Pescador is a fisherman. So we're going to see the horse lighthouse and the fisherman lighthouse by boat. And that is the boat we'll be using down in the lower left. It's not a little inflatable Zodiac Tony, and if Hobie were here, Tony, he would say, no, I'm not going to ride in a little inflatable Zodiac. So not to worry, we've got a real boat to take us out there. And, right here, it looks like the lighthouse is, kind of low and you don't know what's behind it. But if you look in the picture in the lower right, that's what's behind it. It's off on this little promontory all by itself. And the way to get to the lighthouse is by boat. And you would climb up, the keeper would climb up these ladders. Of course, it is unmanned. All the lighthouses in Spain are automated, like here in the States and like throughout most of the rest of the world. But several of them are still manned, primarily to maintain the keeper's quarters and to have a place for them to live, such as my cousin. Okay, he lived at the Faro de la Plata until he retired just over a year ago now. Okay, and there's this one, and I think Darlene, you had sent me a clip about this one at one point, if I'm not mistaken. This nice, very nice tower, relatively modern, 1985. The original one wasn't too much older, 1930. Okay, so it's not terribly historic, but just a couple of years ago, and you see this area is relatively flat. So this one's not going to be any problem to drive out to. But the county officials in that area spoke to the Port Authority and said, we have this local painter here, and he has an idea for painting the lighthouse so we can attract more local visitors to the area. And this could bring some help to our local economy here in this county. And so they got the permission, and there it is. It's supposed to be like that, I think, for a total of 4 years. So it's probably going to be another 4 or 5 years. And then supposedly that's what the contract length was with this painter. But this would be a great place for a group shot. Would probably be the most unique group shot we've ever taken in terms of the background of the lighthouse. We've requested the climb and standing by, but as far as getting to it and seeing it, not a problem at all. And like I said, we arrive in the city of Santander. It's a very regal city. That palace down in the lower left, which is also seen here in the picture in the upper left on this peninsula, this park out here. It was a palace that the King and Queen of Spain would come to visit during the summers and stay there. When Madrid would get very hot, they would come up here to the north coast and stay there. And this was, the turn of the previous century time frame, 1890s, 1895 time frame. It's now been turned into a conference center. I actually attended a international lighthouse conference there about 12, 13 years ago. So we'll be going to the palace, getting a tour of it. And from there, we'll be able to see, and this is one of those you will see a lighthouse. So count this as number 14, the lighthouse of Isla Mauro. And this is another one where my great-great-grandfather was stationed at for a grand period of 2 months. 2 months he spent on this lighthouse. And I guess at that point, he said, I've had enough. Get me off this little rock. Chris and I have been out to it with the keeper at the time. He took us out. And you can only go out, in this one, you can only go out in a small little inflatable, basically, to beach it on some rocks and go ashore. But this is the area we'll be staying in Santander, a very nice area. And then our last light will be this one here, Cabo Mayor. Okay, this is 1839. And the bottom of the lighthouse, the base of the lighthouse, has been turned into a cultural center. They do art exhibits and things of that nature there. Okay, lovely area. I've had the pleasure of, Chris and I have had the pleasure of sleeping there with the keeper. I think this was one of our first visits back in the late 90s. and spending several hours up in the lantern room helping him with stuff, although it was already automated. Just beautiful place. Day 6, we continue down the coast and we're going into the mountains as well. Okay. We've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3 lighthouses we're going to see that day. 2, no, 2 and no 3. And then we're going to go into the interior, into the mountains, and we're going to spend the night in the mountains at one of the famous paradores of Spain. I'll tell you more about those here in a second. Here's the first lighthouse just outside of Santander. This will be just a short visit. Okay. The second one, San Vicente. This has a little bit of a short walk. It's up here on this promontory, which is way back here. And we will be parking over here. And that's maybe less than 100 meters walk there. Okay. Llanes, this is in the middle of a town, a small town. And this will just be a view only. We'll pull up the bus, drive right up to it here, and get out, take a look, take a few pictures, but not too much to see there, not much to go inside and climb, to the second story of this little light. But it is picturesque where it's located. All right. And now we go into the mountains, Covadonga. These mountains are the Cantabrian mountains, which are all along that north coast, and eventually at the eastern end meet up with the Pyrenees. Okay, and this is why in Spain we speak Spanish today as opposed to Arabic. Okay, as many of you know, Spain was overrun by the initially, I'll just leave it at Syrian Muslims that basically escaped the caliph at the time in Syria and Damascus, and made his way along North Africa, picking up, creating an army along the way, and then crossed the peninsula at Gibraltar and invaded Spain, which at the time was Gothic. The Romans had pretty much been gone already for a couple of centuries. This is the year 711, 711, if I recall, is when they invaded. And they very quickly took over most of the country because of the lack of unity among the Gothic groups that had taken over Spain from the Romans. And it was in this little cave here on the side of a mountain in Asturias where a warrior by the name of Pelayo started the Reconquista. The Muslim army had made it all the way up there, had taken over everything else in Spain. And these were the first folks that provided any resistance to them. And the Spaniards, the Asturians, won this battle. And that started what's called the Reconquista, the reconquest, which lasted over 700 years. Wasn't until right before Columbus's trip, I think it was 1490 or 91, when the last of the Muslim tribes was kicked out of Granada at the time. And so it lasted 7 centuries, but this is where it all started. And so it is a very sacred site, not only for Spain, but for all of Europe, because had the Muslims stayed there, they would have next moved on to France, which they tried to do, but were defeated. But things might have turned out different. So, and beautiful location. That's the Parador that we'll be staying at. The Parador is a chain of hotels that are run by the Spanish government, and they are located at former castles, many of them, or just some beautiful sights. And that's where we'll be staying at Aparador that night. The next day we head back out to the coast. We're over here now. We're going to head back out to the coast and see a few more lighthouses. Then we head back inland to Oviedo, which is the capital of Asturias. And it is a long day, but the good news is the next day is our day of rest. Okay, so we end up at the hotel around 7:30, and we'll be on the road a lot that day, but day of rest coming up. Here's Cabo Lastres, then Faro de Tazones, 1864. This is a view only. Cabo Torres. This one I'm still working on. How close again will the bus be able to get? It looks like it's probably going to be about 150-meter walk one way, although generally flat, as you can sort of see from this picture. Here's the lighthouse. Oops. Lighthouse is right there where my cursor is, and the bus would probably drop us off right about where my cursor is now. Okay. Gandas, this is easy to get to. No need to go inside, relatively short, very similar design to many others. So we'll just be pulling up to it, taking a look, taking a few shots, and then moving on to this one, Cabo Peñas. This one is lovely. My great-great-grandfather was stationed here as well. 1852. He was there, I think, in about 1865, 67, something like that. We've requested a visit, should not be a problem because it's also used by the county has worked out a deal with an environmental group. There's an environmental kind of nature walk. That's the word I'm looking for, nature walk all along these cliffs that they've created, which is quite nice. This is Oviedo, the capital of Asturias, another very regal city like Santander. I'll contrast that with Bilbao. Bilbao is a relatively industrial city, more modern city. And, in part because it suffered a lot of bombing during the Civil War of 36 to 39. We'll have some optional non-lighthouse tours available. There's a couple of, these are the first churches, Romanesque type churches that Pelayo, who became the king of Asturias, built after he kicked the Muslims out. So these go back to the year 800, something like that. Still standing. And these are some shots of the city itself. Day 9, we continue on for the western half of Asturias. We've got several very nice, not only lighthouses, but we're going to be stopping at 2 very quaint fishing seaport kind of towns, villages almost. Okay. This is where my great-great-grandfather's family lived, was not too far from one of the lighthouses we'll be seeing here. This is the one he actually was his last station. He was the keeper here in 1904 when he died. Okay. And we'll be seeing that one. Visit requested, very easy to get to. Cudillero. This is a beautiful little fishing type seaport village. Getting to the lighthouse is not easy. The lighthouse is located basically here. You're looking head on into the village. Okay. This is a look down into the main square, which is right there. Here you're looking at it from above. Okay. The lighthouse is located from this picture. It would be up here and around here. But here's a shot where, so the center of town is right over here to the left corner, if you can see where my cursor is now. And you have to walk down this way. And so it's going to be at least a 350-meter walk, okay, to get to the lighthouse. And so I'm talking to the keeper, the bus company, and see there are some viewpoints, kind of like where this shot was taken, where we can get closer. Those that want to walk the 350 meters, great. Those that don't, trying to find a better place where you can still get views, good views of the town, good views of the lighthouse. Okay. But a lovely, lovely little town. Cabo Vidio, another very remote place, but very easy to get to. Straight shot, no problem. This will be a view only because, again, there's not too much to see there. The tower is very short. What there is to see are the views of the coast from there. Luarca, this is the town that is closest to where my great-great-grandfather's family lived. He was his family stayed at home while he worked at the lighthouses. He and his wife had a total of 8 children. Okay, so he was busy when he got home in between lighthouse visits. But he was always on his own. Well, I mean, with other keepers, of course, when he was at the lighthouses. The lighthouse is here at the end of this promontory with a little church right next to it. And right next to it is the town cemetery, which you can't see here. This is the view sort of on the way to the lighthouse. It'll be a relatively short walk, but it's going to be a view only because getting access into it and so forth. The best view, there's not much inside the lighthouse. The best views are from right on top here, which is where the church and the cemetery are located. Right. Cabo Busto, this, although it looks very flat, okay, there's a tiny little village, a hamlet on the way. And the road, it's not that the road narrows, the road stays the same, relatively narrow. But in the middle of the village, there's a couple of sharp turns, and I'm not sure the bus is going to be able to make those turns. So I'm waiting confirmation from the bus company. But if we can get through, we can get to the rest of the way. And again, there's some beautiful views from there. The lighthouse itself, there's not much to see. Okay, these are the lighthouses we will not be seeing in Asturias. So 3 more to add to the list. San Emeterio, Ribadesella, and San Esteban de Pravia, which is it's not really a lighthouse. It's a pier light, but it is active and it's classified as a lighthouse in Spain with their port authorities. These 2 are just too far to get to, and the narrow roads would not allow us to get to the end there. The style is very similar to other lighthouses we are seeing, though. And now we start going into Galicia, our last province. We're going to be spending the night in a town called Navia. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lighthouses, it looks like we're going to be seeing that day, arriving at our hotel around 7 p.m. Okay, these I've pretty much got confirmed because the lighthouse keeper for that area is the same lighthouse keeper that's been there for 20 years, and we're good friends. So he's already told me he'll be available for all of these. This is a modern one. We'll be climbing that. Easy access to it. Okay. Tapia is a little offshore island with a little bridge that connects to it. It would take too much time to get out onto the island. So we're going to see it basically from this viewpoint that you see in the upper left. Okay. Looking out towards the island. So you'd be able to see it, but it would just take too much time to walk across, go up that little hill. It's a short hill, and come back out. And we've got more stuff to cover that day. The best views essentially of the lighthouse are from that point, and then looking back to the town as well. This is another little island right next to it. And this one we are going to walk across. This one I can get the bus a little bit closer. And since this has 2 lighthouses, it's a better combination to come visit. So I said, instead of coming to this one, let's go out to that one. And it's a better view and everything. We'll be able to climb the modern light there. San Ciprian we'll be able to get to. Another, this is a combination old and new. That's been happening quite a few places. Of course, it's been, more than 20 years now since they had built any of these lighthouses, the modern ones, but rather than demolish the old structures, they let them continue to exist and built new ones. This is a totally new one, 1974. We'll be able to visit this one. Day 11, we're in Galicia. We're going to end up at the Tower of Hercules. This is our next to last day. We've got some very cool lighthouses that day to see, and we'll end up in La Coruña. Here's Estaca de Vares. Great-grandpa was stationed here as well. This is probably the windiest place that Chris and I have been to in Spain. You're almost at the tip here where the Atlantic meets the Cantabrian. And so you've got a lot of wind coming in. Big lighthouse station. I think they had, if I recall, four keeper families there at any given time. A relatively new one, 1954. Yes, we'll be able to get to this one. Okay. This is one of their most newest lighthouses, 1992, Fusheda, very modern looking, architecturally interesting. Not quite as colorful as Cabo Ajo, but quite interesting nonetheless. You can't see the lantern from this shot, but it's right up here, and we'll be able to access and climb that one. Cabo Prior, this overlooks, basically at a distance, you'll be able to see the Tower of Hercules. That's why I wanted to stop there. And here she is. The Tower of Hercules goes back to the 2nd century originally, and inside the tower, you will be able to see remains of the original structure, Roman built. And then the current tower goes back to 1790. And our hotel is going to be within it's going to be right close to the hotel, looking out to it. In fact, in this picture down at the bottom left, our hotel is going to be back here with a straight view of the lighthouse once you walk outside. It's about a 15 to 20 minute walk. Here's the two lighthouses we won't be seeing in Galicia. The one on top, Punta Candelaria, relatively modern, 1954. Chris and I had trouble with the lighthouse keeper getting out there in a small car when we went out there 15 years ago. And the keeper told us stories about a truck having to go down that place because he took a wrong turn, and it took him something like 3 hours. He couldn't go backwards. By the time he got to the station, trying to find a place to turn around, his transmission was shot. And so he ended up spending like 3 or 4 a week or something like that at the lighthouse while people came and got the transmission, took it back into town, repaired it, and brought it back. Okay. Our last day, we are going to end up in Santiago. We start at, we're going to have some time that morning to see, we're going to see the tower. Let me back up here. We're going to arrive at the Tower of Hercules at 7 p.m. Sunset is at 8:24 p.m. that day, right? So there's still plenty of sun before sunset. It is open until 9 o'clock, so we'll have 2 hours to see it. Some of it will be after sunset. And again, the hotel is only half a mile away, so we'll probably be shuttling the bus back and forth. If you want to get some shots, take a quick look and climb it and come down and go back to the hotel, you can do that. Okay. If you want to stay the full 2 hours at the Tower of Hercules, you can do that. Right. But then in the morning, I'm going to allow more time. We're not going to leave the hotel until 9:30. Sunrise is going to be at about 8:20. So you'll have about an hour of daylight to see the lighthouse. You won't be able to go up it because it won't be open yet, but you'll be able to see it, walk over there, take some more pictures before we leave at 9:30. We've got 2 lighthouses that are going to be facing the Atlantic now, close to each other. And then we end up at Santiago de Compostela, which I'll tell you about here in just a second. Here's Cabo Vilan, facing the Atlantic. Okay. Very interesting lighthouse. You've got this very large keeper's quarters here. And then you've got this, it's a covered staircase because of the weather there, the wind and so forth. And you go up this staircase to get to the tower. You can kind of make it out back here, the staircase to get up to the tower. Okay. And the last one, the end of the world lighthouse. Finisterre means fin, end, terre, earth, end of the earth lighthouse. This is the westernmost lighthouse in Spain. That's why it's called Finisterre. Straight shot out there to basically Portland, Maine. If you go due west from there, you end up in Portland, Maine. Okay. And visit requester should have no problem getting access to it. And our last stop, and I think our last slide, is Santiago. Santiago, for those of you that are not familiar, is the endpoint for El Camino. El Camino, the way, is a pilgrimage route along basically where we've been going along here on the north coast of Spain, starting in the Pyrenees Mountains of France. It was one of several paths. It was a pilgrimage path for Christians coming to Santiago. Santiago is St. James. Okay, translates to St. James. And the history here is related to the Reconquista. There was a battle in around the year 1000 where one of the Spanish kings of Asturias basically claimed he had a vision of St. James riding on a horse and basically leading them on to victory. And then at one point, supposedly, they found the remains of St. James here in Compostela, which means place of the stars. Santiago is St. James, place of the stars. So this is the endpoint for El Camino. If you're not familiar with it, there's a Martin Sheen movie called The Way, which I would recommend. It's very entertaining, very educational and entertaining, and somber at the same time, with Martin Sheen. And that's it. We go back to the hotel and have dinner, and we're done. Okay, so I am going to stop. Will the presentation be made available for later viewing? Yes, that's why Jeremy has been recording it, and he will send out an email and let you all know how to find it through our website, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Jeremy, you want to say anything else about that? And then I'll turn it back over to you to moderate for more Q&A.
Thank you, Henry. That was great. I wish I could go, but this was the next best thing. And I was thinking, at Portland Headlight, I tried to look out and see Spain across the ocean, but couldn't quite see it.
Stronger binoculars.
Yeah, I guess so. But thank you so much. And yeah, it will be available. And I won't personally be sending out an email, but there will be an email going out when it is available. But I will post it on the USLHS YouTube channel. I'm going to say maybe tomorrow, but definitely by early in the week. So yeah, so look for it there. And I realized something as you were speaking, Henry. I realized I never introduced myself. So most people here, I think, know me. But in case you don't, I'm Jeremy D'Entremont. I'm the historian for the U.S. Lighthouse Society and host of the Society's podcast, Lighthearted. And pleasure to be doing this event as always. So we can open it up for questions. And I want to invite Jeff and Margie, but to take part in this, but this is mainly, I think, for Henry's Spain tour. So you might want to come out of screen sharing, Henry, at this point. And we can take questions in the chat, or if you want to digitally raise your hand, and then we can call on you. You can unmute your mic. If you want to do that, on your controls on Zoom down the bottom where it says reactions, towards the right, if you click on reactions, one of the options is raise hand. And you click on raise hand and we'll see that and we'll call on you. So you can ask questions either way. I don't see any questions yet. If nobody has any questions at this point, we'll move along, but let's give it a moment here.
Looks like some of them are looking for the reactions button. I'm looking at their faces.
Yeah. Zoom changed the way they do that fairly recently. I see Jose has his hand raised. So Jose, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak anytime.
My question is, what lighthouses are we going to see on this tour? I know there were several ones that we're not going to get to or even see. Is that my understanding, or?
So all the ones every single one that I showed are the ones we're going to get to. And I also had, I think, 3 slides. There's a total of 2, 4, I think there's a total of 7 lighthouses that we're not going to see. But all the other ones we will be seeing that I showed. And in some cases it'll be see, some cases it'll be visit. Where we'll be stopping at the light station and going into the light station. And in many cases, we'll also be climbing the towers when it's worth climbing. Some of them are relatively short. It's not worth a climb, but yeah. So as you go back through the presentation, all the ones that I showed are ones that we are going to be going to.
I guess Henry, my question is, on the website, are all those that are on the website, are we going to go see, visit, or etc.? Or some of the ones that we're not going to see are on that website?
They should correlate. What I'm showing you is the latest. Okay, so I'll take a look at the website and see what needs to be updated. But what I showed in this presentation is the latest, and there should be a very high correlation between the two. Now, it's probably that the 7 that we're not going to get to might have been included. I'm not sure. But I'll take a good look at it and see if the website needs to be updated. But the ones in this presentation is the most current and accurate information.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. If they're included, if the ones that we're not going to be seeing are included on the website.
I'll go check that. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know that right at the beginning, we listed every lighthouse that we thought we were going to see through Henry and the tour company. So that, as Henry has gone through and done his research, there's probably some on there that we'll not be able to get to. So Henry and I will work together to make sure that it's an accurate list. Yep,
I'll double check that tonight. And Margie, I'll send you an update if there's any differences.
Sounds good.
You better. No drinks for you.
There are a couple of questions in the chat, and Ron Bandock has his hand raised, but I think the ones in the chat came up first. Eric Sharp has a great question. Will we see flamenco dancers and or a bullfight?
Well, I'm going to be asking some of the people, some of you all members of the trips, we're going to get flamenco costumes for you, okay? And we're going to ask you men too, not just the ladies, because flamenco dancers include both the men. I'm looking for some volunteer guitar players. And so the answer is no. We're not going to be. Flamenco is pretty much in the south of Spain. Okay, so the next Spain tour after this that I'll be involved with someday will be to the south, and there we'll be able to get a big bus. Okay, because there's not. It's all flat down there, and I see Chris is smiling, so I know she's already volunteering to dance some flamenco on the bus for this tour with us. But no, real flamenco dancers, you'll have to wait until we get to the south to Andalusia. Bullfights, good question, but in Spain, as well as in the rest of the world, it is not as popular as it used to be, okay, because of the treatment to animals and so forth. And so no, it is bullfighting in the north of Spain is not as typical as in the south. Okay. In fact, I'm trying to think. I think there might be one of the cities that we are stopping at that has a bullfighting ring, but most of them do not. That is pretty much a southern Spain thing. But by southern Spain, I mean south of the Cantabrian Mountains, the rest of Spain. Yeah, good question though.
Melinda asks, do the lighthouses that are accessible have websites? Does the society have these links for the accessible lighthouse? Go ahead.
I am putting together a list of lighthouse websites and YouTube videos for the members to look at before we go. And trying to see if Melissa's on the list for members, but we can post that on the society website as well. So you can look at, anybody can look at this information. We'll make it available to everybody, publicly available. Okay. So I'm in the process of putting that together. It'll probably be another 2 or 3 weeks before I have the list and the YouTube videos finalized though. Yep.
Yeah.
Good question.
I want to go to Ron's question, but there's one more question in the chat that I think we can answer really quickly. So when Corla asks, so when are you thinking you'll do this tour again? Looks absolutely wonderful. After this September, is there a plan for this particular tour again? Or you said south of Spain might be happening.
We have not. The only thing we've kind of talked about it at a very high level with Margie and Jeff and so forth is this won't be the only Spain tour. Okay. So whether we do this exact same one again, whether we do the Mediterranean south part of Spain, no decisions have been made on that. Just ideas at this time. But going back to Spain in the next, maybe not 2024. We already have a pretty good list that Margie's going to talk about for 2024, I think. But perhaps in 25. But yeah, well, and you know, if there's enough interest in what you guys have seen here, we will give some thought to seeing if there's another way that this same tour more or less could be redone with anything that we learn from it as well. I see Jeff shaking his head. We've done that before where it was a small tour, other people wanted to go, and then we added that tour the following year. So if you are interested, okay, what I would suggest is get in touch with Margie, send her an email and say, put me on the wait list. And whether, you know, it really means you want to be, you will be able to go this year or not. That way we'll know how many people have an interest in this specific tour as it's designed, you know, and if there's another 20 or more people, we will give some thought to see what we might be able to do. May not be this year, maybe next year, but that's what you would need to do is get on the wait list and show the interest in this tour. Mm-hmm. Ron has been waiting.
Yes, he has been very
Jeremy.
patient. Ron Van Duck. Hi, Ron.
Hi.
Go ahead. Here's you're got the stage here.
Well, I'm assuming that our last flight, our last hotel stay is going to, we're going to have arrangements to get us to the airport.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. So good question. Let me talk about getting to San Sebastian and getting back from Santiago. The airport in Santiago is like a 20-minute drive from the hotel. And yes, we will be making arrangements, especially, you know, once we see what people have. Some people might be flying out the next day. For those people that are flying out the next day, yes, we can work that out with you. The only airline that has nonstop flights to San Sebastian and from Santiago is Iberia, which is the Spanish national airline. There's another airline, which is also Spanish, called Vorling, but they are not nonstop. They have to go through Barcelona. And I looked into, I mean, there's like 3 or 4 daily flights. They're very economical, like $40 or $50 for the one-way flight, both legs, the going to San Sebastian and the coming from Santiago. So yeah, Ron, we will make for those, as you sign up and everything, send me an email. Those of you that are going to be, once you start looking and making your flight arrangements, stay in touch with me, send me an email, let me know that you want transportation for the next day, and we'll try to get things worked out.
And I'm assuming that airport, the code is SCQ.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
You got it.
And then coming from San Sebastian, the code is EAS.
No, that one doesn't ring a bell. Let me look at my list here. Wrong one. Give me two seconds here. And while I look for that, let's see if there's anybody else that has a question. I'll get you an answer here.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that there's a question in the chat from Kim. Are there stamps for the Lighthouse passports available at any of these lights? Of course, that's mainly a U.S. program, but maybe there are. Or will there be? Do you know, Henry?
No. Let me put it this way. I have shown Spanish lighthouse keepers and the port authorities, passport stamps in the past, and their response has been, "Oh, that's interesting." That's about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So no, they do not have stamps. The only thing that occurs to me, and I think this has been done by the society in other cases, where the society might create some stamps, and I'm going to leave that teaser out there to see if Jeff or anybody else that speaks passport stamps might want to say anything about that.
Yeah, so we have, like you said, Henry, in the past on international tours, we have created the stamps afterwards and sent them out to the participants. So we can do the same thing here. Jerry's already saying, yeah, I can do it. So,
Okay. There you go. And Ron, you were correct. EAS is the a 3-letter acronym for San Sebastian.
And it's strictly Iberian Airlines, right?
Yeah, it's the only one that has nonstops. Yeah,
Right.
I'm looking at them right now. They have 3 daily, and again, very reasonably priced.
So when we come in, would we be picked up?
Yeah, because people are, no, the incoming, you're on your own to get to the hotel, because we've got people coming in at all different times from different locations. So it would only be on the outgoing that we might be able to get the, if we've got people all leaving more or less at the same time, yes.
Okay. And then I guess getting to how far is the hotel from the airlines? Coming
in San
into
Sebastian.
Spain.
Let's take a look here. I haven't flown into that airport myself. I'm going to look it up right now. Give me 2 shakes here. It is, oh my goodness. Well, you could probably just hang out at the first lighthouse we're going to go to, because it's in that little town. You'll be a day early, but you could just wait for us there. No, it's so from there to the hotel, it's about 10 or 12 kilometers. So, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm thinking we should probably move things along here. I know Margie and I think Jeff might be involved in this as well, to tell us a bit about tours that are coming up, maybe this year, maybe next year as well. But again, thank you, Henry, and you can certainly take part in the rest of the discussion here as well, of course.
Sure. And I'll, those of you that are on the trip that have signed up, you've got my email address, but for everybody else, I'm going to put it on the chat site. It's very simple, henry@uslhs.org. Okay. So if you have more questions about the trip or Spain in general, feel free to send me a note and I'll get back to you. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. And Margie, you want to take it?
Yes, thank you, Henry, for doing this. As Jeremy said, I wish I could go, wish I had signed up, but the tour is full. We do have 2 on the waiting list already, so maybe next time. But in the meantime, our 2023 tours, Northern California is the next one coming up in April. And it's so close that we're almost at the point of doing a short or small group tour. Only 9 people have signed up, but we've got it worked out where we're still going to go. But I do really want to talk about the one that we just put on the website, Long Island. Jeremy's going to be doing that one. And it's only a 7-day tour, and you're going to be staying in the same hotel the whole time of the tour, which is always an advantage. It's also over Mother's Day, so we're going to have a Mother's Day dinner on the Frying Pan lightship. That's what's planned. And see lighthouses all along Long Island, and drop into New York to go to the National Lighthouse Museum, as well as other places. So it's going to be from May 13th to May 19th. So take a look at it if you're interested in going and seeing Long Island lighthouses. Iceland coming up in June is full. Chris Brooks is doing that one, but we have one coming up in North Lake, Michigan, and that's July 14th to the 21st. Nova Scotia is August 12th to the 30th, and then Spain is September 15th to the 27th. Main 3 this year is going to be different than the other main tours in that it goes into New Brunswick. So that's October 7th to the 16th. So those are our 2023 tours. More information on the website if you want to get more details about those.
The New
Quickly,
Brunswick.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say the Maine / New Brunswick tour is not on there yet, but probably will be soon, right?
Yeah, well, we're waiting to hear from New Brunswick, especially Grand Manan, to make absolutely sure we're going to be able to do it before we put it on the website.
Sure.
It's listed as an upcoming 2023 tour on the website, but there's no detail.
Right.
So briefly, our 2024 tours, a lot of these are in the pre-planning stage, more like proposed. But Chris Brooks and his wife Janet are planning a Caribbean cruise in February to see some Caribbean lighthouses. Nice time to go, giving us an option during our winter months to go get in the sun and see lighthouses. And then in April, Lake Erie is where we're going to plan to see the solar eclipse. April 18th at Erie is when the best viewing is of the solar eclipse. So we're going to incorporate that into a lighthouse tour right along the south side of Lake Erie. Outer Banks is definitely going to go in 2024. We have delayed it for 2 years. but it's going to go in 2024 in May. Germany and Denmark, mostly Germany, will be in June, or is planned to be in June of 2024. And then we'll have our regular main tours, and the one that was delayed this year, Patagonia, will be in November of next year. And that is all that has been proposed at this time. And that's pretty much what we have left planned for the next year or two. The tour committee gets together about once a month, and we discuss the way ahead. And if any of you have any preferences, desires, just send an email to me or Jeff, and we'll talk to the tour committee about where that idea fits in to the schedule. So that's
Thank you,
pretty much it
Margie.
for tours.
Yeah, Jeff, I don't know if you want to add anything, and also if anybody has any questions for Margie and Jeff about tours, you can.
I noticed somebody just chatted if the dates for the Patagonia trip have been firmed up, Margie.
They have not.
Okay, it's on the website as November 5th to 19th.
Right. And Ralph is still working with the company to make sure those are good dates to coincide with the boat cruise.
Mm-hmm.
The person leading the tour is a former or board member emeritus, Ralph Eshelman, who has actually been to that part of the world many times. And
Many times.
yeah, and he's a researcher and perfect person to lead the trip. So.
Right. And a good portion is on a boat. And of course, that means you have to know their schedule before we can firm up our schedule.
Well, I'd just like to loop back to Henry's Spain tour just to mention, he's actually seeing one of the, everybody asks what your favorite lighthouse is. And one of my favorite lighthouses happens to be the Hercules Lighthouse, because when I first started getting interested in lighthouses, the ones in America, going back to the 1700s was old. And all of a sudden you're now going to Spain and you're seeing, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that lighthouse is the site of the oldest lighthouse in existence, the Hercules Lighthouse. We're talking about a building or structure that was in existence since the time of the Romans, ancient Romans, 2nd century. And boy, what an eye-opening experience it was for me to go on my first trip to England in 2006. And then it just broadens your horizons completely, and it makes you understand that lighthouses have been part of the human existence from the beginning. So I just completely gobsmacked about the fact that you guys get to go to Hercules, and it's definitely on my bucket list. But going on these international tours really give you a unique perspective. I don't think you can get any way else. That's my 2 cents about this trip.
Yeah. And, I was going to say something about how, and I think you get the feeling from Henry's presentation too, these tours are you get plenty of lighthouses. I mean, you certainly get your fill of lighthouses, but they're also about the overall scenery of the place and the culture of the place. And you're able to experience so much of that as well. As Jeff just said, it makes it very, very special. Ireland, the tour I did this past July, a lot of you were on that. That was just absolutely amazing. It's hard to think of new words for it, amazing, spectacular, etc. But
also, there's something about visiting the European lighthouses, and I'm not sure about this in Spain, but in other parts of the world, where the attendants are so, it's still very much a real job and they have such pride in the work, when in America, a lot of our lighthouses are being automated. It's a completely different perspective, and almost is like you're going back in time to it, but the way it might have been in America prior to 1939. So I think it's a great experience. If at all possible for you to travel to Europe, it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, in the UK and Ireland, you've got a lot of these lighthouse attendants who are almost like modern day keepers who don't necessarily live at the place, but keep an eye on it. And even though the lights are automated, they're almost like keepers. Is there anything like that in Spain, Henry? Are there attendants or anything like that? Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said,
Mhm.
my cousin, he
Right.
lived at his lighthouse up until he retired.
Hmm.
And that's what they've been doing is the the keepers essentially, all the lighthouses were automated going back to, I'd say the mid 90s, pretty much. But they had the keepers, the principal keepers, so to speak. They didn't have that same title, but the equivalent of principal keepers who were living in the lighthouse at the time, they allowed them to stay basically until they retired. And in the meantime, what they did at many of these lights is look for an additional use of at least the lighthouse station, if not the tower itself. And so they have been transitioning. In England, in the UK, many have been transitioning to B&B kind of places. In Spain, I think only one has, but cultural centers, museum places, and things like that. So as the keepers retire and move out of the stations, that's what they've been doing with them. But they continue to be attended to, just like here in the States. Instead of the Coast Guard going out to do the maintenance on the aid and navigation, it's the Port Authority aids navigation team, and that continues to this day. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I don't see any more questions right now in the chat or elsewhere. So we're coming up towards 2 hours, so maybe we want to wind things down. Unless Henry or Margie or Jeff, anything more you want to add?
I've got my vino ready, so.
Excellent. That's
And I think Henry and Margie made a good point. If there are people who want to go on this tour, let us know, because there is every realistic possibility we could operate another one if we have 20 or so people who are interested. So keep an open mind about that.
Yep.
Let us know.
all right. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Margie. Thank you so much,
you.
Henry. That was
Thanks for
great.
joining
Thank you,
us.
everybody, for being here. Those of you who are going on the Spain tour, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Yes.
I'll be there in spirit. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you. We're going to have another Zoom event in a couple of weeks, by the way, about Ida Lewis, the famous lighthouse keeper in Rhode Island. So watch for a notice about that. That'll be on the 18th. So keep your eyes open.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Take care. Stay warm wherever you are.
Bye, everyone.
You too.